So I'm here today with Tom and Pete from the Hava team, and I'm Emily. I'm also part of the team, but I'm just playing the role of interviewer today. So welcome everybody. We're just having a bit of a fireside chat about our recently released Diff View. So Pete, I'll start with you. Tell me a little bit about where this came from and what was behind the idea to bring this into the product.
Yeah, to be fair, I think actually it was even Tom's idea, but I'm going to absolutely trophy hunt the hell out of it. But ultimately, the big part that I play constantly having conversations with customers, literally on a hourly basis, I think these days, is conversations about the power of Hava and seeing what they're doing with their documentation and visuals. But it goes one step further. Once you've kind of explored and discovered what you're running, they came back saying it'd be really great if we can see what changed. So they start looking at it for kind of audit purposes and wanting to go back in time and not have to rely on the kind of the Terraform or the infrastructure as code or the logs or anything else like that, but actually have a very quick visual picture to go, here's where we are today, this is where it was, and then just have this diff view that straight away draws that picture so you don't have to guess or try to look between two different models and be able to see what changed. And it's just the speed. So a lot of what we do is around mean time to restoration, mean time to information really is what we try to do with Hava by having that kind of visual document. And I think having that diff view, instead of playing the game or spot the difference, which is something that we got customers to do a lot of the time, they don't need to do that anymore. It's like literally click, click, that's what changed. Send to somebody and hand the information over. So that diff view is unlocked just the pace that they can get that mean time to information.
Yeah, that's awesome. And why is it cool for the people playing along at home who may not be as technical as we are? Where does diff come from in terms of a concept?
Absolutely, Tom.
Yeah, that's all right. Yeah, so diff is just short for difference. It's pretty standard. So it's a term that really come from software engineering. Software engineering has used this concept for at least 30 years to sort of show what has changed over a period of time. So software engineers use this day to day. When people do a pull request on software engineering, you pull up a list of what was there before, what's there now. Instead of trying to figure that out themselves, you just make the computers do that for you. It tells you this is the difference between the two versions of this file. And with infrastructure as code coming through as well, you started getting that with Terraform, Lumi code, etc., etc. Now we looked at it and go like, why not apply that to your diagram as well? Make the computers do the heavy work. Well, you just, as Pete said, just a couple of clicks and you get directly saying this is exactly what has changed in your cloud environment as a diagram that you can then go talk to people about and have a conversation if you have an architecture team or security team and that sort of stuff. And it makes the conversation really quick and easy. Or as Pete said, if you got an auditing team coming through asking, okay, so what has changed in the environment in the last year that PCI cares about? Be super easy. It's like, here's exactly what has changed in the last year. Let's have a conversation about those things. Let's not have a conversation about the things we had a conversation about last year because we already covered those. Let's only talk about the new stuff.
It's all like version control for your architecture.
But visibility of what has changed. So you can see back in time and see what did it look like a year ago, what does it look like today, and then highlight what has changed in that period of time. So it doesn't allow you to roll back or change your cloud environment, but it allows you to see what has changed.
We don't want to do that, and that's a good point actually. It's a good one, because we had asked that a lot. Like, do you go and actively change things in a cloud environment? But Hava's power is that we're not there. We're telling you what's there. We don't care how you got it there. In actual fact, you shouldn't be click butting, rolling stuff back, doing anything manually, or using tools to do any of that manipulation. That is done really well with well orchestrated infrastructure as code. And one of the things I think we kind of sit back on as one of our principles is you should stick to doing that. We spent a long time, and this and AMRAM consultancy companies, and we all did for long times, telling people to put this in. We caused this problem of all the change in the cloud. I think Hava's big thing is, no, we're not going to go manipulate that. Continue the patterns you do it with, but we will provide you the visual view of all the things that anyone's doing to get their cloud environment to that point.
Yeah, and we also do that from a security view as well, because putting my security hat on here, it's important that we put a fine line or a very clean line to what Hava does and what Hava doesn't, because as soon as we can say manipulate your cloud environment, we cross the boundary saying, well, now we have a direct impact on your cloud environment. We now potentially introduce risk into your process, which we really don't want to do. We want to give you the capability to see what's going on and see what changed over time, and give you that insight to be able to explore and visibility more than anything else. But yeah, we're not there to potentially break your environment.
And what were some of the technical challenges in implementing this feature, Tom?
The interesting thing with cloud environments and the resources in the clouds, and because we do the Diff view across all the major clouds over Google, over AWS and GCP, as I already said GCP, but Azure as well. They have different ways of doing things, different ways of representing the different resources in the cloud, and sometimes it's quite arbitrary. The resources have been developed over the last 15 years when you talk to AWS, and they've changed their approach to how they store information, that sort of stuff. So for us to figure out how do we compare these things, some resources is very easy. We just look at that resource and compare them. Other ones you have to actually look at individual attribute and say, well, is there been a change here or not? So the complexity was really in the data that's provided by the public cloud providers. Other than that, it's fairly simple, and then just getting it to display in a way that makes sense, looking at the data hierarchy of what's important to a user when they see ask the question, what has changed in my environment. So spend a bit of time, and Emily, you can probably answer that yourself because you had quite a bit of input on this one. But how we actually display the diagrams to highlight what has changed, what has not changed, what's old, what's new, and that sort of stuff.
Yeah, and to be clear, I really hope we can get a bit of a preview of some of we had a bit of a psychedelic time going through some of the visualizations and determining some of the animations that we're going to use. So I really hope that we managed to get a video in at this point to make sure we share this with all of you, because it was actually a bit of fun trying to get some of those animations right.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, and let's do the multiple wearing hats thing, just something that Tom said, but just on that one quickly. I'll put a virtual hat on. I don't have a UX UI hat on. I'm probably the worst at this, but I did like the psychedelic or dark color. I'm just putting it out there. And massive kudos to Nimish and our team, because I thought it was great. Anyway, and then the second one, I'm going to put the partner hat on, in the absence of Rena being on this one, and say we love all our cloud partners, even though they can make it challenging. We love you very much, and we work with all of them quite equally, no matter who's being mentioned on this call.
To go into that a little bit more detail, just a little bit more around what the feature actually covers. So this does work across AWS, Azure, and GCP.
Yes, it does. Wasn't sure if that was a question or a statement.
I'd love to flip it. I'd go a bit more. And what do you reckon it leads to from here? I mean, I know on the product side, and you hold the keys to the roadmap. Maybe it's interesting for people to understand where do we go next. So Diff view is good, and then what do you think some of the next things are building on the back of that kind of visualization and change?
Yeah, the Diff view has been really good to get out there, and actually one thing I'm interested to jump into with you in a minute, Pete, is just some of the ways that we see customers using it as well. But I guess Diff view is one direction that we're headed in, where a big focus of our roadmap at the moment is just sort of revisiting how we represent information as the Hava diagram generating machine. So up until now, we've sort of been working, we've got a fair bit of maturity into our model and all in the way that we bring resources to the fore and how we display them. So what we're really starting to look at now is how we can get into some more specialized views. We really want to be able to be that playground for cloud experts who know what they're looking for. We kind of want to give you everything on a page. Like, even though it's a bit crazy, you can go in, filter, cut and dice, and form up the view that you want to see in there. So we're going to continue to work on bringing in filters and working on some of the logic in our little search bar for custom views. But we also want to do a bit more work delving into our specialized views. So for users who aren't necessarily in the cloud all day, every day, and really familiar with how cloud infrastructure hangs together, we want to apply some of our expertise in there to say, hey, this is how you might look at a network, or this is how you might look at workloads or services, even getting down into some more specific use cases around like a FinOps view, compliance. We see a lot of applications where this can help people, and we want to sort of meet people halfway in terms of providing information in a way that's useful to them and their roles.
Yeah, there's certainly heaps more flying out the door these days. It's fantastic, and I think it's testament to the dev team and the work that common team there is smashing out. And I think to your question when you're saying about like what it does per customer is really, really good one. So DiffU provides quite a few different things, especially from that, like, let's talk about the problem. Like we talked about some of the problems it solved clearly. It's when you're asked a question and need to kind of see that. A big way we really saw some of our partners and other people pop in and talk about it was we want to have an ability to see what's changed in that particular thing, but we want to look at architectural drift. Yeah, so one of the big things that we see customers using Hava for these days, I think DiffU very much complements what we've done with alerts. And I think we've got a whole conversation to have another fireside chat around alerts and our observability and architectural monitoring. Hashtag, because we basically created that. So if you have a look at that though, and what we see customers using for, we can get alerts, and so you'll get an alert in Hava with the Hava alert side of things to say your architecture has changed, and it will actually show you very much a DiffU as well. Even in emails, will show you this has changed. Go have a look. The very next iteration, and that is someone sees that and goes, things are changing. At some point, they stop and go, I think it's like the 4th time we've seen that environment change, and they want to be able to see that drift. Has drift occurred? And not just for a single environment they're looking at. Often it's changed in one area. What happens in organizations is the next area copies and the next area copies, so being able to detect that drift in multiple different ways, from alerts to checking yourself to whatever it might be, is really important to be able to get that kind of overall view happening, to be able to say customers are using that to solve that problem point on how do I actually detect the drift. Yeah, so that's a big thing that we're seeing, and visually being able to see it. So back to the point, DiffU just gives you the ability to see that change very quickly.
And one thing to add to that as well is both the DiffU and the alerts, you can focus it down to a smaller, like a workload specific view. So one of the powers of Hava is it can take everything that's in your cloud account and throw it onto a page. It's going to be a mess. And we had a customer today that imported about 1,700 VMs, which creates a really big diagram, which is almost useless because it is so much on the screen. So it's just information overload. So what you want to do is then, okay, kind of focus it down to the thing I care about, which is specific workload or something like that. And we can create a workload diagram for that. But then what it allows you to do is for that workload, track history, do diff over time, do change over time, and alert on change. Exactly to what Pete was saying about drift. You want to see architectural drift on a specific workload. You don't care about the architectural drift on your whole cloud environment because it's going to change every day. So you're going to have alerts going off everywhere, and there's just going to be a lot of noise there. So being able to focus it down onto the thing you actually care about is incredibly powerful.
Yeah, it's a really good point. That's I think that is one of the big challenges for us as a product. Like, yeah, cool, we can bring all that data out and we can put it up on the screen, but it's constantly applying the logic and as a human, when I draw a diagram, there's like 100 decisions that I'm making with every stroke of a pen. I guess a question for Tom, like how hard is it to actually replicate that to the modeling?
Oh, easy. You see the AI, right? We just put some AI over it. The problem solved. No, it's incredibly hard. We put a lot of heuristics into our diagrams based on our experience of the things that we've done. Because I've been a cloud consultant. I spent 10 years as a cloud consultant, essentially drawing diagrams for a living. And what we really find is that you make decisions all the time on one of the things that are important to display in the diagrams, for other things that you don't really care about. And how should I put it? There's always a story you want to tell with a diagram, and how do you take the story, the information you want to convey, and make it
valuable,
observable by people, so they can actually understand what you're trying to tell them just from a picture. And to do that, there's a whole bunch of heuristics you want to do. So the example I always pull out is like, what if you have 1,200 VMs, and all those VMs have network cards, they have hard drives and all that sort of stuff, but those are things you don't care about. You just assume they are there, so you don't put those on the diagram because it doesn't really make sense. So those sort of heuristics is important to approach. So every resource that we display on a diagram, have had a conversation and thought about, is this actually useful for someone to do? But then you have different layers of information you have as well, and which is where those specialized views that Emily mentioned sort of comes in, where you look at, okay, I want to look at all of my cloud environments all at once, and you look at, I want to have the 10,000 foot view of what's actually going on. At that point, you were like, well, there's no point showing VMs because you might have 100,000 VMs in your cloud environment. It's just a big mess. So like, what do you really care about? Is potentially just, well, I want to see the network architecture. I want to see how the different parts of my organizations are connected together at the high level. And then once you start to get further and deeper and deeper into that, you might start looking at, okay, I want to look at a single VM and I want to see what's this single VM connected to. Does it have a network card? Does it have, how many hard drives does it have connected, and that sort of stuff. So it's a whole range of different things that you need to think about when you draw these diagrams, and getting it right in a single view is almost impossible. So we don't try to do that anymore. We started out with our infrastructure diagram, which sort of like was everything, and then we sort of expanded from that into more specialized views. And there's some changes coming to that as well, how we do that, which I'm not sure I'm allowed to talk about yet, but I'll pull that one to Emily to see to dig into it more.
I think the other thing as well, to your point there, is like two things as you were talking there, Tom. Is one, chatting to a partner yesterday, and I actually copped I hate you. Yeah, I think you're on that one as well, Emily. Not in a bad way, not because of product, but because they had kept trying to create this capability. And I think everyone always thinks drawing a diagram is easy, because when you jump on a whiteboard and you draw the things that you know matter to you and to your team. I think one of the big things that Hava does is like try to capture the eye of the beholder, both generalistically to make sure, to like your point, Tom, that they're getting value and they're seeing the thing that they care about on those diagrams. But when they don't, being able to get them that view, whether it be specialized, custom search, something that we do to save that, which is why we always say to people, we're not a drawing tool. We don't want to be a drawing tool. There are free ones out there. Go use those. Yeah. What we really want to do is, like, you didn't come here for a free drawing tool. You came here to have this done for you and not have to redraw the diagrams and see all these things and be able to get these diff views, specialized views, the different things that we see security-wise and other things that we create for customers. And I think that's the biggest challenge we have, even in speaking to customers, which we always ask for constantly. Show us the diagrams you drew. And it's not that we're going to mimic it back and give it to them exactly how they drew it, but each and every time we bring back that feedback from our customers globally is to try to create the opinionated view that we can give and say, most of you kind of want to see it like this, and then enable the manipulation they want to do to that diagram without having to draw it, without having to be a drawing expert and muck around with something that may not be representative of what's actually running there. And so that's, I think, the balance we try to get right, is how to give enough movability, changeability, without compromising the fact that it is an actual, it is an image of what is running. Yeah, it's not fake, it's not added to, it's not changed, it's not a mistake. It's always correct. So to balance those two, I think that's the thing I think we're getting right for customers today, and we will continue to have to get right, which means constant feedback from everyone.
Yeah, and also as your environment is changing as well, the diagrams will update. So if you manually added a bunch of stuff to it, it becomes very hard to update it, because as soon as you start adding things to it, it becomes a point in time. It doesn't automatically update anymore.
Yeah, for future videos, just quickly, I will wear shoes. I just realized. And I almost had my slippers on earlier because we work from home, but anyway. Yeah, everyone's like, I've got shoes on, it's just you, whatever, I'm comfortable.
If anyone's interested at home, we do wear shoes at Hava. Except
all two of us.
Two out of three wear shoes.
2 out of 3 Hava employees wear shoes.
That'll be a post on LinkedIn, and then it will point to this video just so everyone's aware.
Absolutely. So to bring it back to Diff View, because that is why we're here. This is our first Fireside chat, so we're obviously very excited to bounce around a bunch of topics. But bringing it back to Diff View, we've recently released it. It's been live to the general public for a couple of days now, so we're pretty excited to see it in there and see it getting some use. Is there anything that you think we missed? Anything else that you guys are itching to say about Diff View?
I'd like to. I think there's like Diff View itself and where else it's going. that's probably the thing that we're doing there. And I know that we'll continue to uplift that around the changes that people may want to specifically see in that diff. And so hence it's really well polished and released. Like, to be fair, Diff View is really great. It answers the question. It's well designed. Sorry, I feel like I'm spruiking here all the rest, but I actually think it's quite polished. It's the feedback that we've gotten, right? Is that this is great. We always think about what's next. So I look at it going, what do they want to see on a diagram? We've got a legend this time in this view, which is a little bit different to what we've done before in the past. And Hava you'll see more of, very much providing a legend, so is that when the diagrams are exported or given to somebody, it makes sense what they're looking at straight away. I'm really keen to see what people think about some of that and growing on the diff view.
Yeah, awesome. And I guess one thing to touch on that I didn't mention before in terms of what's coming next, like this, what we've focused on initially have been like the adds and removes, which is very much your classic diff lens on things. I think one of the things that we will start to focus in on, possibly where Pete was going with his previous question, is going into more of the modified view, and that brings its challenges as well, because again, it's like what's relevant. Like there's a lot of things that change all the time, but you don't necessarily care about, like uptime counters and stuff like that. So one of the things that we will be doing is going through a bit more detail in the attributes of each of the resources and working out which ones do we care about when they're changed, or when they've been, like what counts as a modify. So that's some of the logic that we're just starting to work through for our next iteration. So yeah, get in amongst the diff view, have a look at it, diff away, and then keep an eye on it as things change and evolve over time. And we look forward to coming back and revisiting this conversation in the future.
Cool.
Thanks everyone for watching. It's been really great to have you join us today on the couch for our fireside chat. Thank you very much to Tom, our CTO, and Pete, our Chief Growth Officer. I'm Emily, Chief Product Officer at Hava. It's really exciting to get to spend some time with you, our audiences and viewers on LinkedIn. We really appreciate you tuning in to listen. So thank you very much, and we'll see you for the next one.